Daytona 500 TV ratings do see an increase from last year. We have more clarity on Riley Herbst's move on the final lap, and let's take a look at some ones to watch going into this weekend's race in Atlanta. Hello everybody, welcome to Dirty Air. I'm your host Alex Lambert, and we have a packed show on this Thursday afternoon. We have NASCAR Daytona 500 TV ratings are out. We'll stack that up, compare that to some other major sporting events in the United States. We'll break that down. We did see an increase from 2024 and 2025, so that's important. We'll take a look at the final lap of the Daytona 500 again. There's some things I missed on Sunday's edition. Riley Herbst potentially tapping the brakes before going up and causing that final lap crash. We'll break that down. And then, of course, we'll talk about some odds going into Atlanta this weekend and ones to watch for this weekend's 400-mile race at Atlanta. So let's go ahead, get into it. First off, Daytona 500 TV ratings are up, coming from Fox's PR team. Just under 7.5 million average viewers, right? So that's the average of the entire viewership for the whole race, from green flag to checkered, who watched the entire broadcast. It was an average of just under 4.5 million. That's not a bad number. That's a solid number. That is an 11% increase from last year, but last year's Daytona 500 was ran late Sunday afternoon, Sunday night, due to a 3+ hour rain delay. 2024's edition of the race was ran on a Monday afternoon because of postponement from rain, so we also beat that. Important number here, peak viewership over 9 million. That's what's solid, right? Because when you look at those last 15 minutes of the race, those last 4 laps of the race or so, the end of the race is certainly very important. You want that to be high. Over 9 million viewers is certainly solid, right? So we talked about how earlier, it was $400,000 for a TV commercial during the race. Well, that last commercial break is usually a little bit more, closer to 500,000 or more, because that is the peak viewership of the race typically. So that definitely drew up the average views a little bit. Like I said, up 11% over last year. And the most watched Daytona 500 since 2023, that was over 8 million. So this number's not bad. I think I was expecting a little bit more just with all the pre-race hype and all the promotion that we were going into this race weekend. I was expecting a little bit of a higher number, but 7.5's not bad at all. Very solid number. If you were kind of paying attention this morning, we got a number from a reporter that turned out to be incorrect. It was just over 5 million. That's a concerning low number, but 7.5 million, not low at all. It could take time to build up this event again. Some rain delays definitely haven't helped it over the last few years. Hope to see the Daytona 500 continue to increase. Just to stack this up against a few other sporting events, this doesn't really explain exactly how big each sporting event is, but we'll just look at the last few, starting in 2021, because 2020 numbers were unusually low typically. The Daytona 500 in green, you see a few low numbers there. Once again, rain has really killed this race. So anything under 6 million really is rain impacted. 2021 was ran at like midnight because of rain on Sunday. 2024 for Daytona was once again moved to Monday afternoon, Monday night, and then 2025 was also rain delayed, but back up to over 7.5 million. Interesting numbers there. Also put the Masters on here. This is Masters Sunday. You see a pretty steep increase in Masters Sunday. That's something that we've sort of noticed over the last few years. Under 10 million, over 10 million. Last year was over 12 million. Average viewership for Rory McIlroy, finally winning that golf tournament. It peaks way higher at the finish too. Like the last 30 minutes or hour of the Masters is a lot higher than the 12 million. I think it was closer to like 18 or 19. You look at the World Series. This is a little bit skewed because this is over 5, 6, or 7 games. You see a increase though, but game 2024, 2025 especially was definitely peaked because of that. Was it 30-something million views in the United States alone for the World Series in Game 7? So that's going to raise that number up quite a bit. So just to stack it up with some other sporting events, let's take a quick look here at the final lap of the Daytona 500 one more time, because there's a few things that we missed, or we have more clarity on exactly what happened. So here it is once again. You see Tyler Reddick getting the push, or he gets the push on the back straightaway, but you see him carrying that momentum past Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott doesn't make an aggressive enough block to hold him off. Reddick goes on to get the win, but what's brought a lot of controversy is that 35 car, the Monster Energy car of Riley Herbst, going up the racetrack, causing that wreck coming to the finish line, right? That has got a lot of attention. Brad Keselowski, who's a big name in NASCAR, has called it out. He essentially said it was a stupid move on Riley Herbst's part. Obviously, that was immediately after the race, so emotions are high. He's been trying to win a Daytona 500 for like 17, 18 years. That needs to be clear as well. But Denny Hamlin on his podcast, Actions Detrimental, did have some comments to say. I encourage you to check it out. Did mention exactly what happened. They have access to the data. You can see what the drivers are doing with the steering wheel, with the brakes, with the gas. And clearly here, there's a quick moment where he taps the brakes. So if you slow it down, you can't really see him tapping the brakes, but you can see where that momentum sort of dies a little bit, and it's really interesting. So he's coming full steam ahead. He can definitely, looks like he has a shot to go by Chase Elliott, but for some reason, maybe, just taps the brakes, doesn't want to just ram through Elliott, and then goes up the racetrack. He doesn't want to push Chase Elliott, right, to the win. So I would like to see from Riley Herbst exactly why that decision was made, or what was going through his mind at least. I know this is split-second decisions. If he could go back, I'm sure he's not going to tap the brakes and just immediately go up. I think that was maybe instinct to not push the 9 past his teammate to win the Daytona 500, which would also make sense. And then instead he decided to go up the racetrack for his own chance and gets barely clipped by Brad Keselowski. But it's important to note here, I think Herbst probably, if he doesn't tap and I remember this is just like split-second decisions, inches is what matters in these races. So that's very important to keep in mind during all this. But he just goes up just a bit too late, taps the brakes a bit too early to not run into the 9, it seems like, and goes up and causes the wreck. So it's interesting now that we have more clarity on exactly what happened with Riley Herbst. I'm just going to chalk this one up to inexperience. I think this is definitely a mistake on Riley Herbst. That's not what you want to do at the end of the race. It's inexperience. This is I believe, his second Daytona 500, only a second full-time season. He's got a lot of learning to do. He's made some really impressive moves on the racetrack. You go back to some Xfinity Series races or the Xfinity Series in Indianapolis in 2023, right? There's incredible moves on the track. I don't have concern about Riley Herbst learning a little bit, but it's interesting to see exactly what happened, right? Definitely Riley Herbst probably made a mistake tapping the brakes a little bit, but it's all split-second decisions. You're trying to figure out what to do at the end of the race, and sometimes that can happen. So it's interesting just to know exactly what happened on the racetrack, why Riley Herbst couldn't go up, make the move, and then, of course, ended up getting clipped by Brad K there on the final lap. We do have a few odds to talk about, or let's put some ones to watch for this week's race at Atlanta. It's interesting because Atlanta's a lot different than Daytona, but it has the same package. It's still going to be pack racing, but we're going to see a lot different racing, right? One thing that's really fun about Atlanta to watch every single year in the next gen era of Atlanta, they repaved the track in 2022, increased the banking, lowered the horsepower to make it more close racing, pack racing type, similar to what we see at Daytona, and it was closer in 2022. We saw a big change in the summer of 2022, and each year that track has continued to degrade. The surfaces continued to wear a substantial amount every single time we go back to this track. I want to know how different it's going to be this year in February during the day. After another winter, it'll be even worse. Handling will be even worse when we go there at nighttime in July because of the track temperatures. It'll have time to wear out even more. But here we go. Here's a look at some ones to watch for this week's race. So if you're betting, this comes straight from Fox Sports website. Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, Chase Elliott, William Byron, those guys are the favorites. Does that seem familiar to a week ago in Daytona? It should, because it's a similar style of racing. But one thing about Daytona is Daytona, Talladega are going to be a little more wild, a little more fluky than Atlanta. I don't think Atlanta is going to be all luck. I don't think we're going to get that massive, crazy last lap crash like we get at Daytona. There's less room at Atlanta for one. The caution's more likely going to come out. It's a smaller track. It's not a big track like it is. And I also think the field's going to get spread out more. Handling's just going to be more important here than it is at Daytona right now. Handling will be important at Atlanta. So that's going to favor the favorites. Ryan Blaney, Joey Logano, Chase Elliott. Those guys certainly have an advantage here. All the big teams have an advantage at this racetrack. Like if I want to pick some higher odds, I don't like how Denny Hamlin's been running at these type of tracks over the last few years in the next gen car. Tyler Reddick could be another good one. Just won the Daytona 500. But I look at guys like Kyle Busch, right, who has higher odds, but it shows speed in Daytona in qualifying. Like, that to me is a net positive for Kyle Busch. I know he's got a decent car. I know RCR can bring good cars. I know Kyle Busch is a good driver. This race will favor him more, I think, than the Daytona 500 did. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. could be a good pick this week also. And of course, one that I really like, if I go to long shots, Daniel Suarez won this race before, has come close to winning this race many times. Well, has one of the best average finishes probably at this racetrack. Daniel Suarez has had a lot of good finishes in the Next Gen era at Atlanta. Well, he's plus 4,000. Carson Hocevar, plus 350, leading on the last lap of the Daytona 500 last year. Or this year, and then leading, finished in the top 10 a year ago, finished, I believe, second a year ago in this race. So, yeah, Carson Hocevar is also going to be another one to watch. I know I'm just spitballing a little bit, but just wanted to do a little pre-race for Atlanta. That's really it. All there's to talk about. And, of course, let's get rowdy.